Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to WPCampus. Let me know if everyone can hear us properly. And we're here to present on effectively manage and scale WordPress multi-site and also importance of insights. We're from New York University. I'm Neel Shah. I've been working at NYU with the technical team for managing a WordPress application. And I have
Hi, my name is Harshit Sanghvi. I've also been working with NYU since last 3 years. I'm work on the support side. Neel works on the technical side. We are here to, I'll be presenting the later part of this session. I'll let Neel start with the effectively manage and scale WordPress multi-site session.
Okay, so here are some points that we would like to cover for our today's session. How we use WP at NYU, our plugin and theme update management process, mirroring production to dev, dynamic site creation, and importance of insights, how we make use of insights at NYU. So just to give you a little brief about our service, we call it as web publishing at NYU, and it has been live for last 3 years. We have more than 5,000 sites and 18,000 users. Our large focus of our service is mainly on teaching and learning. So we have about majority of teaching and learning course sites based on the categories that we do. Giving a little stack about infrastructure that we manage at WP or our web publishing service, we're using AWS EC2 instance for our server, using Aurora database, our Redis cache, PHP 7 Nginx server, and Shibboleth single sign-on. A lot of these things are something that we developed and evolved eventually. So these are the kind of things that we also think is important for understanding or deciding on when you want to move forward with a WordPress large-scale multi-site. So selecting a hosting provider. These are a couple of items that we think we learned during our process of how to select a hosting provider, or at least what kind of items to keep an idea on. So what we did was a few things, depending on which you want to weigh in more, is like your current team. We think having a current team which has a mix of developers as well as non-technical people makes a huge impact on the kind of hosting provider that you might want to go forward with, considering different types of hosting providers and managed WordPress hosting that is available out in the market. Level of support. So level of support also says whether you expect your hosting provider to give you support in terms of application management or plugin and theme troubleshooting, or issues which might be specific to the use case that you have rather than more of the infrastructure. So that also plays a lot of important role in different types of managed hosting providers that we have out in the market. A level of access is interesting because that's something that we started evolving ourselves or learning a little bit more about during our process, when we discovered that FTP might not be the only thing for us, but it also depends that some people might be good to go with just an FTP access. For us, it was also using SSH as well as WP CLI access to do some custom in-house work that we intended to move forward with. Flexibility. Flexibility also plays a role when there are certain aspects where you might want to have your hosting provider be flexible enough to provide you certain elements of infrastructure, such as either increasing just a little memory or increasing space or increasing computing power. So there are some hosting providers who might be able to allow you with flexibility in terms of these aspects, or some might be very rigid enough to just provide you different levels or tiers of hosting plan. So that's also an important element when you're considering a large-scale WordPress multi-site. Support for single sign-on. So we at NYU had this requirement that we wanted to have single sign-on, and we figured that not a lot of hosting providers do support that. So that should also be something important to consider, whether your hosting provider is supporting that. Production and dev resource sharing is more of learning as well, that whether you want to have production and development sharing the same hardware, such as database or web server, in order to avoid any risk or failures of your production going down when a dev system, you're trying to experiment with the new custom code that you may have. And cost is always the least option, but that might be an important factor as well in terms of different plans. Now, moving forward to our plugin and theme update process, this is more about how we evolve with trying to manage internally with the team itself to perform regular or periodic plugin and theme update process. A lot of times we have a debate whether we want to do this as early as we can or whether we can do it on periodic basis, such as on a monthly basis or bi-monthly basis. So we came up with this idea of let's have our own plugin and theme update process. And this is just a higher level overview for everyone to understand the kind of environment that we have and the way that we try to adapt this process. What we do is basically we have 4 environments. One, the update one, which we basically only use for update process, and it doesn't usually get modified by anyone else or anything except the update process. Dev, QA, and production are the other environments that we use, but it's set up in a different way that the WP contents folder is a bare repository, a Git bare repository rather than a Git working directory. So that every new changes that get pushed via Git, they get implemented on that server rather than allowing anyone to make changes on that particular repository server itself. So to give you a little high level overview, our update process looks like that we run a command, which is similar to WP-CSE update. What this command would do is that there's a flexibility that you could either perform minor updates if a plugin had 1.0.1 and it was updated to 1.0.2, you might want to perform those updates unless it's really critical, or you might not want to do, or you might want to just do it with all the other major updates that you may have. So based on those kind of aspects, we can customize the WP-CSE tool to perform a set of plugin or theme updates and also set certain exceptions. So once this is done on the update server, there would be a command that would commit all the code changes to our main Git repository, where everything gets changed and new changes are already reflected. So from there, it goes into our deployment process for each environment. So the way that it looks like is that you initially try to deploy these changes to dev environment and run some tests. So we're also trying to come up with our test, automated test, something similar to the unit test that WordPress itself provides, but also trying to expand that functionality over to our maybe custom requirements. So some basic tests such as whether the front end loads fine, whether our single sign-on Shibboleth login works, when a new change is implemented or a plugin is updated or even added. There could be multiple other areas where we could expand and continue growing in terms of these tests. So the idea is that our test suite keeps on expanding, and we can perform these tests every time a new plugin or a new change comes in. So once it is successful, the idea is to perform the same process on our QA environment and deploy changes, including running the test again, just to make sure that it works fine before we even do the final deployment. And and then we try to deploy our changes to production during a scheduled maintenance window. So usually we've seen that with our education and as well as our particular university, you also want to have specific windows when you might or you're allowed to make changes. So that's where this process comes in handy in terms of performing it when required. And so talking a little bit about the benefits, few issues that we experienced were unwanted code. So since we have a team, it is quite possible that you might run sometimes into unwanted code that comes into your production. So we used to experience that even if you were just using Git, maybe some of your team members were trying to experiment something, a new feature or new plugin on dev or different environment, and it was not removed from that particular update process specific on that environment perform. It also helps in shorter release cycles. So initially, it takes a little while setting this up, but what we realized that if you have this process in place, it makes it much more efficient or easy to perform periodic or regular updates to plugins as well as themes. This goes the same for even trying to investigate or trying to vet a new plugin or a theme or a feature for your users. A few tools that we've been using for this, one of them, the first important one is the CSE tools. It was developed by CUNY for their plugin process. And it turns out that this is helpful. This WP-CLI CSE tool is the one which helps you perform or differentiate between a major and minor update, and then also commit that to Git. We're using Behat for performing unit tests, and then using Jenkins CI for our task scheduling or performing continuous integration. I saw that some people had issues with the connection. Is it still working? Sure. Okay. Seems to be back. So moving forward, this is next. This is another process that we try to develop internally. This is about how do we mirror production to dev or QA environments or different environments that we have. And just to give a little bit overview about the challenging issues that we experienced was a lot of hosting providers do provide copying from live to stage environment, but we've seen a lot of time problems that stage doesn't really get replicated or duplicated from production completely. It may have network tables mirrored and the site tables are not mirrored, or sometimes the content is mirrored, or some content doesn't really get mirrored. So we came up with our own MirrorDB script or a process, and this is the high-level overview of how we try to implement it. We have a server, which we call it our references as op server, but this could be your local machine as well. And we run a MirrorDB script. What this script does is it allows, or it tries to export our production database by going on production server and trying to export it on per table basis rather than the entire large scale database. This is one more experience that we gained towards our process, that if you try to use MySQL dump or similar utilities to download the entire database altogether, that database might not be accurate while trying to do an import. And in order to avoid that, we came up with this tool where it tries to download or export each and every table that you have in a database. So like, for example, our system grows to almost close to 100,000 tables at this point. And this would literally download each and every table and try to store it. So with this process, what happens is once the database is exported on production, our op server or local machine can download that exported database and perform certain search and replace functions. With this search and replace, it's mainly about handling efficiently non-serialized data. So wherever you have URL references to your production, it will replace it to your destination or dev or QA environment's URL, and it would help you in terms of having a system ready. So the next step would be that the op server tries to reset the dev database or your destination environment database. By saying reset, what we literally mean is that it removes the entire database in order to avoid any unwanted changes or things that may not be on production. So it literally empties the database and tries to import the database completely. Once that is done, it also tries to create or reset the list of super admins. So what we experienced was that maybe you want to have a certain set of users who have super admin access on production, but that might not be sufficient for dev environments. You may want to have multiple other team members of your team having super admin access in order to perform certain actions. And so this tool also resets it to predefined list of users as super admin for dev or QA environment. Once that is done, we try to deploy our code changes, like the current Git branch or master branch to development, so that in addition to having all our plugin and database, we also have our plugin and themes reset to our production version. And we use git reset hard specifically just so that we can avoid any unwanted changes that may have been performed on dev. So the idea is that on our particular use case, NYU, we try to do this every 15 days so that we also have a current version of production available. And we also have enough room or time to do any troubleshooting of issues or do new vetting if at all that is required during our process. So a few benefits are we have a fully mirrored dev and QA environment. This also helps in terms of having a backup created for a large multi-site, which can be used in any situation, such as if it was really required or even for testing purposes. One of the interesting aspects of this tool that came out to be was that we were able to use the script for migrating one hosting provider to the other. So originally we were hosted on WP Engine, and it felt that we couldn't meet our needs. So we moved over to Pagely, and this tool was also helpful in terms of having only a read-only mode for a certain amount of hours and not having any service downtime at the moment. So the tool is MiraDB, as we call, and then we use Jenkins CI for this. Giving a little information about our site creation process. So this is one more. I think someone just made a question about, did you do this every 15 days? Yeah, so we have this already with our continuous integration service, that it performs or resets our dev as well as QA environment every 15 days by notifying all our users, or at least our development users or team. So coming back to the site creation process, this is another enhancement that we've tried doing over to a regular WordPress WP signup page. The WP signup page usually looks like this, where you have your basic information about the site name or a title, and select whether you want to keep the privacy of search engine indexed or not. And the site is created. You move forward and you try to do other changes, or users are required to do other certain changes in the site itself once it's created. So we tried to implement our own site setup wizard, which separates all of these processes into basic steps. So to give you a little idea, this is how the first step looks. So in order to create a site, you get greeted with the option of whether this site is being used for a personal use case, a teaching and learning, or an administrative. So this helps in also keeping metrics of where each site is being used at in our service. So that's something that I would leave on Harshit to explain a little bit more about the use case of metrics. But you get to choose this first option. The second page actually gives you a little bit more in-depth questions that you can answer, such as what site category this fits in, whether it's an HR site or whether you want to create one particular course site or a different department site. You have options of multiple other privacies, and then also accepting our terms of use. The next is you get an option of selecting a theme that you would like to apply for your site. So you have an option of selecting themes that we have already made available, and you can see it visually before even going to your site admin dashboard. The next step allows you to select features. Features is how we brand it, but it's basically like the plugins separated in sections. So a user can understand the kind of functionality or kind of plugins that they might really need for their site. And your site is done. So you have your URL and you can move forward with your site. So a couple of benefits was more about enhancing our WP signup page, just to give our users flexibility of being able to select a process, since we saw and we had a lot of discussions with our faculties or users that they were a little bit intimidated or confused after creating a site, like where exactly to head to. So this gives more of a direction on certain items or certain elements that they might want to work with. And the tool is Site Setup Wizard. So I'll have Harshit give you more information on the importance of insights that we use.
Right. Hi everyone. So I'll be briefly going over some of the metrics that we collect, how we use it over at NYU, how we make decisions based on that, and what sort of plugin or tools do we use to do that. So let's take a look at some of the questions that I'm sure you might have had operating or working with a large scale multi-site environment at your universities or institutes. For example, you might want to know how many sites are created and all the sites, or how many sites are getting spammed by someone, or any of our users are misbehaving. For example, creating tens or hundreds of sites within a short amount of time. all of that affects your network performance, and you might want to get on top of top of that as soon as possible to to resolve any of the issues with your service. So we couldn't find any single solution which works with which answers all of these questions, or gives you the numbers that you want, the information that you need to make decisions based on that. So we developed a tool, a plugin that answers all of the questions, and many more. Some of the features that the plugin has, it allows processing it allows processing all the sites and stats for your plugins and themes and users in the background. It works in the batches so that it doesn't affect the network performance of your network. You can even fine-tune batch processing settings, and it sends notifications when the stats are available. It also has nice analytics dashboard available to all the super admins of your site, of your network. So let's take a look at some of the questions that this plugin can answer. So I'm sure this is a question that some of you might have come across, that you will need answer to. For example, how many sites have more than 200 users and more than 20 active plugins, or which has more than 1,000 attachments. So this plugin can answer all of these questions just by dragging and selecting the verticals on these dimensions, and you can export the data, and then you can look at the admins or users of the site, and the URLs of your sites within your network. Let's take a look at some of the other insights that this plugin provides. So these are the site creation chart based on time of the day and date. As you can see, the start of new semester is always the most popular time for creating new sites, and the daytime between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. is the most popular popular time among all the users within our network. Also, you can find out how many sites are public versus private, or which theme is most popular among all the users, and what database version are all your sites operating on. Because a lot of times what happens is, when you do a network WordPress core update, not all your subsites database get updated. So when you see a lot of your sites are still operating on an older DB version, it affects network performance. So you can look at these stats and then do that manually. This chart provides an overview of site registered over time. There is a huge spike almost every start of the new semester, similar to the users registered users registered chart. So this chart is very interesting because it gives you an overview of how all your users within the network are connected. This is just a sample of about 20% of our user base. As you can see, this just one user who is connected to more than 500 users. So, for example, when a professor creates a site and adds 100 users, and each of those 100 users create their own site for class projects or something like that, and then adds their teammates, they are all connected to each other, and then you can look at this chart to find out, to get an overview of interconnection between all your users within the network. So you might want to know, how any of this is useful to you. So these are some of the use cases that we have that we use the data for. For example, when you want to send targeted communication emails to some of the users, to all the admins of the sites who has more than 1,000 attachments, to tell them that you are violating the terms of use of your service. All the admins who are while allowing comments from public, and then their sites are being spammed. You can also use the data to decide migration strategies. For example, if any of your plugins or themes are not compatible with WordPress release, this plugin can provide an overview of all the plugins or themes which are outdated or not updated recently by the developer. You can also find out sites created by the alumni and then decide on how and when to remove those sites and content. So we at NYU use this plugin and we keep on evolving based on new use cases and based on new requirements. The plugin is available on WordPress.org, and we would welcome any suggestions or any pull request to keep evolving the plugin. So this is all from my side. We'll go through some of the questions that has been posted. Next. Sorry. We'll look at the questions.
Sure. So one of the question is about, would you be willing to share a list of your go-to plugins for Multisite? Sure. We have a set, like the basic plugins that we explained were a set of plugins, but in addition to that, we use certain plugins as well. Like we use some of WPMU community plugins. We also use some premium plugins, and we can definitely share those items if someone is interested for that. Another question is, are those 5,000 odd sites on one single multi-site installation? Yes, as Steven had mentioned, all of these sites are on one single multi-site network. The other question is about the SHIB authentication plugin. Or did you use from the community? Yes, we use the Shibboleth plugin from .org itself, and it is a little less maintained, but I believe it does a good job of still allowing you to use Shibboleth integrated. You may have to do small tweaks here and there, but it is still reliable enough. I think one of the question was about, I don't know if this will be a part of your talk or not, but can you address if you use allow or require SSL, especially with custom domains? So at present, we do not allow custom domains or redirection, but we are still exploring into that aspect, whether we should allow that or not.
But we do, we use SSL strictly. We delete all the non-SSL traffic to HTTPS.
Yes. I think there's a question about our change or update process from plugin update process through dev and dev to prod.
Dev to QA to production. Yes, it does. So we test all the plugins first on dev and then QA on production, regardless if it is from WordPress community or not.
Sure. I think the other question was about for SHIB. We already answered that we do use the .org plugin for SHIB. Question about tolerance for downtime. We try not to have any downtime, but there are certain edge cases where some plugin may not be vetted completely, but we definitely try to avoid that. We don't have a specific downtime, but it's also like that we try to keep it with our service as much as possible.
What is your max expected capacity?
It's interesting that we did have a larger than this set of plugin and themes in our system, but we haven't decided on a cap. We scaled down just so that we could have a stable system and have some tests and automated system in place. But we may want to at certain point start growing back. But I don't think we have any fixed max cap right now at the moment. How often do you mirror production database? I think Steven already answered and we covered that we mirror that on every 15 days. On the sync production to dev for your database, how tables containing meta values pertaining to host names for live site versus dev sites. So when it comes to meta values, what we've done is that in our process, it actually performs a search and replace during import process on dev. So that solves our issues about the host names and any other information that is related to our URLs or even such as shibboleth URLs. Trying to take care of Google Analytics code as well. So those things do get taken care of. When it comes to serialized data, we do not touch the serialized data at the moment because we did try doing that, but we ran into certain issues, and it seems that it might not be as easy as we expected originally to change serialized data. But since this is dev or QA environment, those serialized data only impact certain content of a post or a page rather than impacting our dev behavior. So we still get a fully replicated mirror of production.
But we do modify list of superadmins, which is serialized.
Right. The other question was on where did that go? How long does the database mirror take on 200,000 tables? I think it is directly proportional to the number of tables that you have, the time that it takes. So for us, it as it was mentioned by Steven, it takes about like 6 to 8 hours for export process with almost 100,000 tables. But that's also considering that there's different mechanisms, like a couple of mechanisms, like when we were running a WP engine, we had an issue that we didn't really have an SSH access. So this script was also efficient enough for you to, if you had remote connection access directly with your database server, you were able to export that database from your machine from directly on the server. But the catch was that that would take a little longer. And whereas if you try to do it directly by the environment itself, by using SSH and uploading it on that server, then that takes a little more quickly compared to the other process. So I would definitely say it depends on the kind of system and the database that you have. Let me see, does something waited up? One question is, how long do you leave the sites on your multi-site if they're no longer active? So we have tried partially implementing this like a deprovisioning process, but what we are trying to come up with is like 1 year if you have not used the service. We will take certain actions and maybe archive it for a certain time and then remove them, but that's still in process due to reasons that we have had internally. So we haven't removed sites, but that's something that we definitely want to consider as well.
Yeah, we are planning to automate the whole decommissioning process so that once the students are graduated, we will try to decommission them the sites and content created by the alumni after 6 months, and then any sites that has been left inactive for a year, we'll be removing them automatically. But that's not. We still do that manually, and we're still in the very initial phase of that.
I think there's one more question about someone is working on higher ed, and how do you manage a lot of images or PDF by being stored into one place? So one thing that we tried doing, it's difficult honestly to manage, but from the plugin that Harshit just explained, you might get information on how much media is being uploaded to a certain site, and that could allow you to maybe manually inform users. The second is also that limiting the per file size. So that's something that WordPress allows you to do. You could limit that to say 5 megabytes or 10 megabytes, depending on the size that you might want to allow. But there is no definite cap on how much size you can actually restrict, unless there's a plugin out there which does that. But I don't think we are aware of that or we use that.
We encourage users to embed the files, using Google Doc embedder for PDF and Word files, or using YouTube. Using OEmbed for most file types, using third-party services. But we do that by enforcing lower per file size limit, so that if they have larger files, they will use external services to 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 embed that on our our service. So
there's a question about how do you handle updates to plugin which require a database upgrade to be initiated from within the admin. So what we do is that the reason why the WP-CLI method that we explained, the WP-CAC, that actually does it through the dashboard itself, but it's just using the command line by using WP-CLI. So basically that plugin does make changes, and when those changes are pushed over to production or dev or different environments, we also try to use CLI tools for upgrading network, which might be sometimes related to plugin updates as well. But that's the kind of workflow that we follow right now. I'm not sure if that answers your question completely.
Yeah, the question was the name of the network stats plugin. It's called WP Network Stats. It's available on WordPress.org. The other plugin was Site Setup Wizard. That is also available on WordPress.org.
There's another question about, have you ever migrated a standalone WP site into our network? So we do that with the WordPress importer tool, and we have allowed users to do that. We've had some issues sometimes, but so far it has worked out pretty good. Thank you, JB Christie. And the other question is, do faculty or students have an option of exporting their content if they wish to? Yes, we definitely encourage our faculty or students to export their content if at all they would like to, since this is also only available to current students. So when students graduate, they're not allowed officially to keep their content or manage their content on this service. So the other question is, what plugin or tool do you use to manage plugins across sites? Yes, we use multi-site plugin management, as well as WPMU's Pretty plugin to categorize them and display in a much better user experience than the standard WordPress experience.
And we use multi-site plugin management for for restricting some of the plugins to just the simple admins.
Right. I think those are about all the questions, unless we have missed something. But if anyone has any more questions, do let us know.
Yeah. We'll go through the list of the questions again, and if we'll respond to that if we missed it right now.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you everyone for attending once again, and hope you have much more information with the other presentations.
Right.